Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on the 17th of June. Today, 7 a.m., here we are on New Zealand Sports Radio, and that's right, we come to you live every single morning at 7 a.m. In the headlines today, netball is nearly back. Finger goes up in Australian cricket. Blackburn retires and Warriors name unchanged lineup. Let's get straight into it in that netball news. And today, netball is going to be announcing the new draw of home and away fixtures. That is because since we have returned to level one, that means that not all the games will have to take place in Auckland as was originally planned. The first few rounds will do up until the end of July, but they will look at some games in the second half of the season being available being actually at their home venues. So do look out for that when it comes out today. We are resuming on Friday evening with Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic versus the Northern Mystics. And remember, the first two games, the crowd will be friends and family of the players as a thank you for the support they've provided during the lockdown. Then after that, 500 fans will be available to go to those games in St John's in Auckland at the Auckland Netball Centre. Just a reminder that there is a slight rule change in the fact that the games will be 12 minutes shorter than normal, with 4 12-minute quarters rather than 4 15-minute quarters. And I'm going to hand you over now to Ashwin, who will take us through our cricket news.
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to our viewers and listeners out there on the interweb. And yes, the finger goes up in Australian cricket, as signalled in yesterday's morning sports briefing. Kevin Roberts, Chief Executive of Cricket Australia, has been given out just 20 months after he started the job. He was appointed until the end of 2021, and Cricket Australia's chairman, Earl Eddings, has declined to comment on whether Roberts was paid out in the last 18 months of his contract, dollars to donuts that he was. Nick Hockley, Chief Executive of the T20 World Cup, that's the men's version, will take over in the interim. Eddings says Roberts' departure was necessary after various stakeholders in Australian cricket pushed back on proposed cuts due to COVID-19. Now, basically, to give you a bit of background information, I suppose, is that a lot of those stakeholders are questioning what Roberts is saying when you take into account the fact that they want cuts for the cricket associations across the states. They've had staff redundancies, yet the dollars seem to be there, particularly when you look at a $300 million tour by India that is likely to go ahead. In the latest in the will they, won't they file, Earl Eddings, the aforementioned chairman of Australian cricket, has also come out and said that it is unlikely and unrealistic that the men's T20 World Cup will take place in Australia as scheduled. The tournament was scheduled or is scheduled for October 18th through to November 15th and was discussed at the ICC meeting last week. But a decision on whether to go ahead was deferred. ICC has always remained optimistic despite the growing likelihood of the tournament being postponed. Eddings, who sits on the ICC board, feels like time is running out for the 16-team tournament to proceed. And with a little bit of focus on some actual cricket news, although not cricket news in terms of playing, Johnny Bairstow will be working hard to win place back behind the stumps for England. Johnny Bairstow he lost his position when he was dropped for Josh Buttler for the Test series in New Zealand last summer that followed the Ashes series in Australia. He later got a reprieve as a batsman in the Boxing Day Test in Pretoria, but has not gone on to play any Test cricket since then. He was also left out of the tour to Sri Lanka, which didn't go ahead due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this week, in Swinging from the Hip, we will have a friend of the show, Sharuban Pasupati, on the show with regulars Tarun, Rohit, and myself. So make sure you join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. New Zealand time, right here on New Zealand Sport Radio for Swinging from the Hip. And Paul, that's our sports news for today.
Thank you very much, Ashwin. There's lots more sports than just cricket, but I know some people think that cricket is all the sport there is. So that's the sports news for today. But never mind, there is other sports news as well. And we'll be handing you over.
News.
Handing you over to Stephen, who'll take us through our birthday today.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everybody. And birthdays today, an American-born footballer who plays for the Ferns, a well-travelled football Fern, and finally a Tongan-born All Black. And that's where we start the birthdays this morning via Tangitau Laporta Fifita, born this day, the 17th of June, 1992, is a Tongan-born New Zealand rugby union player who currently plays as lock or loose forward for the Hurricanes in Super Rugby and for Wellington in the Mitre 10 Cup. Fifita, who turns 28 today, has played 12 tests for the All Blacks at international level, earning his first cap against Samoa in 2017. His elder brother, Lever Fifita, is also a rugby union player who plays for the Tongan international side. Moving on to the round ball game. Rebecca Ashley Stott, born this day, the 17th of June, 1993, is a New Zealand footballer who plays for Melbourne City in the Australian W League. She is a defender for the New Zealand women's national team. She previously played for Australian W League teams Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Victory, and Melbourne City, as well as German Bundesliga team SC Sand and Sky Blue FC, and the Seattle Reign in the NWSL. Stott celebrates her 27th birthday today. And finally, Rebecca Katie Smith, born this day, the 17th of June 1981, is a former New Zealand international footballer who played as a defender. She was a member of the New Zealand women's national football team. Born in the United States, Smith qualified to represent New Zealand internationally through her parents. Smith celebrates her 39th birthday today. Happy birthday to all those three sports people. I'll be back with league news shortly.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And in the rugby, we have Fifita. Sorry, not Fifita. We've just been talking about Fifita as a birthday. We have Fatialofa, who has returned to Worcester Warriors for the first time since he had a severe neck injury. That happened 5 months ago, and there were worries that he would never be able to walk again. We did see him recently walk out of hospital, which was a very, very welcome sight. Yes, an emotional return there to Worcester Warriors, where he'll be continuing his rehabilitation. He was there for 2 hours doing walking exercises on the pitch. And yes, it's we hope for him to have a very as full a recovery, and look forward to following his progress there. His wife tweeted out, look after him and send him home and make sure he comes home in one piece. Yes, absolutely. Fatialofa, obviously, who played for Auckland and Southland and won the Super Rugby with the Hurricanes before moving over to the UK. Talking of the UK, there has been a world call between World Rugby, the Six Nations countries, the rugby or Sanzar countries, the English rugby clubs, and also the French rugby clubs to try and sort out a new international season. They all apparently agreed that change was needed, but they could not agree on what that change was going to be. If you listen to some of the news that's coming out, it sounds like it was that all the unions were in agreement, but they could not get agreement from the clubs. The players' associations were also involved as well. They have said they will be urgently having more talks. And look, if change doesn't happen now, when is it going to happen? Is generally the feeling around the world. Over the weekend, during Super Rugby Aotearoa, Sky Sports have announced that they had a bumper crowd. Apparently 750,000 people watched the Highlanders versus the Chiefs, Blues versus the Hurricanes, and also Warriors versus the Cowboys. Sky is normally very, very guarded around its viewing figures, so it's a bit of a surprise they came out with this, but they did say this was a 91% increase on the average audience. So clearly, a lot of people, not only people, a lot of people in the stands, but also a lot of people watching from home as well. That does not include numbers of people who are watching from the pub, for example, such as myself. I watched the Blues versus the Hurricanes in a local pub rather than in a home. In some sad news, Black Ferns lock Charmaine Smith has been forced retired on medical grounds. The 29-year-old was when she was having a routine a scan for her back. The doctors noticed she had a bulging disc in her neck, and she has been told that she risks serious injury if she continues playing, and so has had to retire. She has played 27 tests since 2015, including scoring a try in the Rugby World Cup final over in Ireland against England. So she is a World Cup winner as well. Talking of Rugby World Cups, and over in Australia, they are bidding for the 2027 Rugby World Cup, and they've announced an advisory board to look into that, including Olivia Wraith, Sir Rod Eddington, John Howard, Sir Peter Cosgrove, Elizabeth Gaines, Hamish McLean, and John Eales. Good to see they got representatives there from Qantas, one of the key sponsors of Australian rugby, and also from Twiggy Forests Mining Corporation as well. Obviously, he is a big stakeholder in Australian rugby as well. So looks good. Looks good that they're being inclusive on that board. Now I'm going to hand you over to Stephen, who is going to take us through our NRL update.
Thank you, Paul. In league news this morning, travel reduction, a big bonus for the Warriors. Warriors named team for Friday night clash against the Rabbitohs. And finally, Kalen Ponga signs a 4-year deal extension with Newcastle, but it's with the Warriors we start this morning's league news. The Warriors have negotiated all manner of obstacles in this NRL season, but admit they're reveling in one major bonus: no regular trans-Tasman travel. 3 games into the Australian Odyssey, prop Ignatius Passy acknowledged the players aren't missing hopping across the ditch, which is often used to explain their historic underachievement. The Kiwi club has always been loath to use the travel factor as an excuse, but Passy admitted there are obvious benefits to remaining in Australia from a physical perspective. The fortnightly ritual of early alarm clocks, waiting at airports, sitting in planes, and unpacking overnight bags has been replaced by far more palatable routines. They have the handiest home ground of any club, which their Terrigal accommodation located just a 15-minute drive from Gosford's Central Coast Stadium. If the COVID-19 enforced regulations remain the same, 7 of their away games involve bus trip to Sydney, and the other 2 are interstate charter flights. It grants the players superior recovery time and more opportunity to focus on detail. Obviously, staying here saves us massive time, Passy said. It saves us from waking up early and all that stuff. For a short turnaround, that's normally for us almost 12 hours of flights there and back. Just getting our body right, that helps a lot. Since the competition resumption last in May, the Warriors have posted convincing wins over St George, Illawarra, North Queensland Cowboys, both in Gosford. However, they were well beaten in their lone trip by Penrith and Campbelltown. Passy said they have changed tack and will travel earlier by bus to Friday's game against South Sydney at Bankwest Stadium, hoping to squeeze in a nap upon arrival to have them in sharper condition. Hopefully they'll be well and truly woken by the time they get to that particular game. And speaking of that particular game, Warriors coach Stephen Kearney has named an unchanged lineup for the round 6 game against the Rabbitohs this coming Friday, remembering 8 p.m. at Bankwest Stadium. That full Warriors lineup is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Patrick Herbert, Peter Hiku, Jared Beale, Adam Pompey, Cody Nikorema, Blake Green, Jermaine Taunua Brown, Wade Egan, Lachlan Burr, Eliasa Katoa, Tohu Harris, Adam Blair, Carl Lawton, Pawasa Famusili, King Vuni Yayawa, Jack Murchie, David Fusitua, Ignatius Passy, Chanel Harris Tavita, and finally Isaiah Papa Ali. And finally, in league news this morning, Newcastle have re-signed star fullback Kalen Ponga for 4 seasons and one of the most important deals in the club's history. The deal is believed to be worth around 4.4 million, which will make him one of the highest paid players in the NRL. The 22-year-old Queensland fullback was originally signed until the end of next year with an option for 2022, but opted to remain with the Knights as they chase their first premiership since 2001. It's no secret I want to win a comp in Newcastle. I want to hold the trophy up here, Ponga said. It's very exciting and very proud moment for myself and my whānau. We're building towards something, and I can definitely feel it. It's something that I want to be part of, and I'm excited to be part of. The contract puts to bed speculation Ponga was eyeing a code switch to rugby union in time for the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Ponga qualifies for New Zealand and has previously spoken about his respect for the All Blacks, but on Tuesday he reiterated his love for Newcastle and his desire to bring success to the area. After Canberra made the NRL decider last year, the Knights now have the longest grand final drought in the game. Their last appearance was with Andrew Johns' led 2001 premiership team under new coach Adam O'Brien, and on the back of Ponga's long-term deal with the club, it's hoped the Knights can achieve a long-awaited success. Andre Ponga, Kalen's father, helped negotiate the deal with the Knights. But it was never about the money. Sure, we'll leave it at that. That's league news for today. I'll be back with more tomorrow. Everybody just have a great day. Remembering our league show tonight with Brad and Sanjay, where I think they'll probably discuss that a little bit more. It's all about the money? Not about the money? I think it's all about the money. Don't you think, Paul?
I think money is definitely involved. There's a reason why it's called professional sport, isn't there? You are listening to the morning sports briefing here on New Zealand Sports Radio. And in other news, race driver Simon Woolsey has been suspended for 2 years due to purchasing 2 prohibited substances online. It's understood he did it for medical reasons and not to gain an advantage. But look, folks, please don't self-prescribe. Go through a doctor. Because obviously self-prescribing can lead to further complications. So he did break the rules, and yes, he has been banned for 2 years. Over in cycling, and Peter Sagan has surprised a few of us by saying he's going to skip the classics in favour of the Giro d'Italia. He had already promised the Giro that he would race he would attend the race this year, having never raced in it before. It's this time it is going to take place during the 3rd to the 25th of October. Normally it's held in May. Obviously, due to coronavirus, it has had to be rescheduled, as have all the spring classics as well that he would normally race in and be one of the favourites to win. So it's interesting to see that he has stuck to it and going to be attending the Giro. As Stephen said, maybe it is about the money. The Giro d'Italia is known to give financial incentives for cyclists to attend their race. Moving on into tennis, and Nick Kyrgios, let's be honest, known for making a comment or two, has called the United States Tennis Association selfish for intending to host the US Open on the 31st of August. Djokovic, Nadal, and Halep have all voiced concerns about the plans of for the tournament to be held in New York. Kyrgios said he will get his hazmat suit ready for when he travels to the event. So it looks like he'll be traveling to it, even though he might object to the timing. Flushing Meadows is part of Queens, which is the second highest death toll of any county in the US due to coronavirus. So clearly, you can understand where his concerns are coming from, even if he doesn't always put it in the most palatable way. However, Dan Evans and has criticised some of the comments around restrictions on support staff as being no big deal. And whilst American Danielle Collins has said that it's easy when someone's made 150 million throughout their career, referring to Djokovic, to try and tell people what to do with their money about and turning down playing the Open. She said, obviously, when all these players are self-employed contracts essentially and earn a living off these winnings, the higher players obviously get more money through sponsorship. But for the lower players, yes, it's all about winnings, and therefore turning up to these events or having these events cancelled means that they basically their earnings have been cut to zero. And we heard yesterday that prize pots will be down over the next 2 to 3 years. So yes, it's going to be a tough time for a lot of people in tennis. Staying in the States and moving on to the NFL, and the commissioner has come out in support of Colin Kaepernick. Roger Goodell has said that he would like to see Kaepernick back in the NFL and playing. He hasn't played since taking a knee in 2016 when he led when he led the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl, and he has not played since then. There have been a number of tryouts, but there's always been question marks as to how serious those really were, and were they just to show that he wasn't being banned for his comments. Things look to have turned around now, and it looks like that there is support for him to come back into the sport, as Black Lives Matter has changed the conversation over there in the USA. You have now started the day the best way, up to speed with all of the important sports news. Don't forget you can listen on the go to New Zealand Sports Radio. Just search for the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favourite podcatcher, and we can listen to us as you drive around town on your commute, or do the gardening or whatever it is that you're up to.